जयो राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यामुना तीरावनचारी यामुना तीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा। जहाँ विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र सत श्रीमद् चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र सत श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्रीलदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपक विनाश श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय। मायपुर नवदीप धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। जमुना माई की जय। नर्मदा माई की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी की जय। समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान सगणिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति विकास स्वमनित नामने नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वमनित नामने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे विशेष जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते नरसिंहाय नमस्तेजस्तेजसे आविर्भव वज्र नख वज्र दंष्ट्र कर्माशयं रंध्रय रंध्रय तमोर सुकृस कृस ओम स्वाहा। अभय अभय भयम आत्मनि भूयिष्ठ ओम श्रौम यदि दास्यसि मे कामान् वरांस्त्वं वरदर्शभ कामानां हृदय संब्रोहं भवतस्तु वृणे वरम्। एवं जन्म निपतितं प्रवाहि कूपे कामाभिकाममनीयः प्रपदं प्रसंगात् कृत्वात्मसात् सर्वशिना भगवन् गृहीतः सोहं कथं विसुचेत भृत्य सेवा। Hare Krishna, devotees, welcome to yet another session of online reading of Brahmacharya and Krishna Consciousness. Please accept my humble obeisance unto your lotus feet. So, we'll continue to read from the topic Overcoming Sexual Desire, page number 91. I hope everybody is able to hear. Is there a record of how many Matajis approximately reading the reading session? Okay. So we'll continue to read from page number 91. Uh, Chanting should be accompanied by regular hearing about the realities of material life. The Srimad Bhagavatam narrates the activities of great personalities like Yayati, Pururava, and Shaubari, who found out after years wasted in attempting to enjoy sex that there is no enjoyment in it at all. Their stories are recorded so that intelligent people can come to the same conclusion simply by hearing them. Hearing about Krishna's pastimes with gopis is specifically recommended to vanquish lusty desires in the heart. However, if you become more lusty by seeing or hearing the pastimes of Krishna with Radharani, that means you are not fit. Stop it. Don't be foolish. Hearing accompanied by contemplation leads to realization. The real thing is to become totally disgusted with the thought of sex. But until we reach that stage, we have to carefully control the mind and body by intelligent understanding that sex is not in our interest. Therefore, the intelligence should be applied to consider the following points. The temporary nature of the beauty of young women. The young girls of today are the old women of tomorrow. The illusory nature of that beauty. Try imagining how beautiful a woman's body would be minus its skin. Sex does not bring happiness. The non-devotees are having sex, but they are miserable. The devotees are happy, and the more they advance and give up material attachments, the happier they become. On the contrary, engagement in sex, licit or illicit, inevitably leads to suffering. It is unavoidable. See, sex, the cause of unlimited suffering. Sex desire, although much appreciated by people in general, causes pain to the heart. Sex is disappointing, firstly, because the anticipated delight is never fulfilled in the actual act. In other words, it is not enjoyable as Maya would have us believe. Sex is frustrating because desires for it are unlimited, but physical ability to engage in it is limited to a few minutes at a time. Devotees have higher knowledge and experience of a higher taste. Just as a rich man can never savor the coarse rice relished by the poor man, so even a fallen devotee cannot enjoy the illusory pleasure of sex even though he tries. We made a commitment at the time of initiation. For one who knows the difference between right and wrong, had taken a vow not to sin, to willingly engage in illicit sex will bring serious reactions. The most important reason for refraining from illicit sex or even from thinking of sex is that it is not pleasing to Guru and Krishna. According to Sridhara Swami, by meditation on the Supreme Lord, one can overcome lust and other mental disturbances. More specifically, the Bhagavatam states the sex desire can be overcome by meditation on Krishna's eyebrows. This can be very effective. We can meditate on the deity we are serving or on pictures of Krishna. Krishna will help us. Srila Prabhupada also recommended deity worship for those very troubled by lusty desires. We may think ourselves to improve to go anywhere near the deities, but this process is prescribed because if one is at all principled, when he comes in the presence of the deities, he must force his mind to stop thinking of sex. And gradually, by performing this intimate service, a conscientious devotee will become so attracted to Krishna that all lower desires will become insignificant. Don't play games with the mind. It is useless to meditate on sense gratification and also hope to give it up. Hope to give it up. Better than meditating on sex is meditating on the consequences of it. Any sane person should consider the suffering that accrues from sexual activity and resolve not to indulge in it. Habitually looking at women and thinking of them plunges a person into the ocean of lusty desires and drives him mad. There is no question of spiritual advancement for such a person. Conversely, one who gives up the bad habit of looking at women with lusty intentions will automatically become more peaceful in mind. What to speak of not looking at women? A brahmachari should not even look at animals engaged in sexual affairs, remembering that the great yogi Shaubari Muni fell down by seeing the copulation of fish. Somehow or other, the mind must be wrenched away from the sense gratification and fixed on Krishna. Tell yourself, if you want to have sex, you can. It is not difficult to arrange. Everyone is having sex. But if you want Krishna, that is something else. So either you go ahead, get married, do it, or forget it altogether. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 15th chapter, 22nd verse, Asankalpaj jayet kamam. By making plans with determination, one should give up lusty desires for sense gratification. Asankalpad can be translated as by not making plans for sex, by not thinking about it, by not visualizing it, by not dreaming about it. In his commentary, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur suggests Bhogar Bhog Bhogartha Bhogarhata Buddhi Varjanat as a synonym for Asankalpat. This basically means by giving up the enjoying mentality. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, Asankalpat means that even if lust arises from remembrance or seeing of a woman, a person is determined not to think, this woman is to be enjoyed by me, thus he conquers lust. One technique to control the mind is to ignore it. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. By tolerance alone can one conquer desires and avarice. So many nonsense thoughts enter our minds. If instead of picking up on them, we simply ignore them, they will naturally and quickly die to be replaced by other thoughts. So we have to train our minds to think of Krishna. Savai mana Krishna padara vindayoho. Maharaj Ambarish engaged in various activities of devotional service, but first of all, he fixed his mind on Krishna. Philosophical discussion between devotees attempting to understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness from different angles of vision, as Srila Prabhupada encouraged us to do, gives the mind meaningful subject matter to meditate on and makes it strong. One should not be lazy in the matter of understanding the philosophical conclusions of devotional service. For such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus, one's mind becomes attached to Sri Krishna. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has suggested that devotees harassed by morbid desires for sexual enjoyment meditate on Krishna's pastime of killing Shankachuda. Shankachuda wanted to enjoy with the gopis. Similarly, we should understand that our desire to enjoy sex is demonic. For all living entities are Prakriti and are meant to be enjoyed by Krishna. So we should loudly cry out to Krishna that just as he killed the demon Shankachuda, may he please kill our demonic desires. There are many suitable prayers to help us overcome sexual agitation. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a prayer. May Sanat Kumar protect me from lusty desires. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, lusty desires are very strong in everyone, and they are greatest impediment to the discharge of devotional service. Therefore, those who are very much influenced by lusty desires are advised to take shelter of Sanat Kumara, the great Brahmachari devotee. Another nice prayer is found in Caitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, 22nd chapter, 16th verse. Kamadhinan katina katidha palita dhurnideshas tesham jata mayina karuna natrapa nopashanti usrijyaitan atha yadupate sampradam labdha buddhis tvamaya sharanam abhayam mam niyung Niyungchvatma dasye. O my Lord, there is no limit to the unwanted orders of lusty desires. Although I have rendered them so much service, they have not shown any mercy to me. I have not been ashamed to serve them, nor have I even desired to give them up. O my Lord, head of the Yadu dynasty. Recently, however, my intelligence has been awakened, and now I am giving them up. Due to transcendental intelligence, I now refuse to obey the unwanted orders of these desires, and I now come to you to surrender myself at your fearless lotus feet. Kindly engage me in your personal service and save me. Then there is a classic prayer of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. ऐनन्दतनुज किङ्करं पतितं मां विषमे भवाम्बुधौ कृपया तव पादपङ्कज स्थितधूलिसदृशं विचिन्तया. O son of Nanda Maharaj Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. We have no other shelter but Krishna. As Srila Prabhupada explained, our most difficult position is sex. Krishna, Maya, has given us such a propensity, sex, that it will create disturbance. Even though you are rigid and vowed and you are doing nicely, sometimes, especially at night, you are disturbed. Therefore, Shuratau, Krishna is most expert in this conjugal love. Therefore, we have to admit, surrender to Krishna. Shuratau Pangor. We are very much feeble and very slow, and so far as our sex impulse is concerned, here it is especially mentioned Madana Mohana. Sex impulse is called Cupid, Madana. If we become staunch devotees of Krishna, these material sex impulses will vanish, because even Cupid becomes attracted to Krishna. We are attracted by Cupid, but Cupid is attracted by Krishna. Therefore, Krishna is Madana Mohana. That is the only remedy. Yadavadhi mama cheta Krishna padaravinde. If you stick to the lotus feet of Krishna, Krishna, please save me, then this material thing, sex agitation, will not disturb you. This is the only way. Therefore, it is said, Madana Mohana. Our spiritual life is hampered very strongly by this sex impulse, but it is material. So we try to tolerate. Oh, how much is there? Okay, I think so much is there. I can request some other devotees to continue to read. Hare Krishna, I asked this question because that only just I am reading the note which Mataji read. I asked this question because I felt I am the only Mataji along with him to attend the sessions every day. My mental felt very lonely. I request you to greet at least Hare Krishna. I request you to greet at least Hare Krishna every day if possible. Thank you. Oh. Okay. Hare Krishna, Vivek, you can read.
Is it audible, Prabhu?
Yes.
Yeah. Just tolerate a little and chant Hare Krishna, pray to Krishna. Please save me from these disturbances. And we should materially also control. Control means atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha. Atyahara means too much eating. That is also agitating. So everything can be controlled by Krishna's grace. He is Madana Mohana. Therefore, our first business is to surrender to Madan Mohan and establish our relationship with him. My dear Lord Krishna, I have so long forgotten you. That song is sung by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Manasa deho geho jo kichum ar pilu tuapade Nanda Kishora. This is full surrender. Then Krishna answers, Aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha ishyami ma suchaha. He will protect us. So, tam stitikshasva bharata. There are many disturbances. So Krishna says, tolerate and do your business faithfully. Chant Hare Krishna, follow the rules and regulations, and remain fully surrendered at the lotus feet of Madan Mohana. There will be no more disturbance. Srila Prabhupada also described that unless one is captivated by the beauty of Madan Mohana, then he will be Madana Dahana, troubled by the arrows of Cupid. See Chaitanya Charitamrita Adilila 1.19 purport. to understand more about approaching Madana Mohana. Perfection is not achieved in a day. We may stumble while climbing a mountain, but we have to regather our strength and determination and resume the climb until we become so adept that we don't slip anymore. Ultimately, we have to develop a superlatively higher taste in Krishna consciousness. We have to actually get to the stage where we are always experiencing great bliss. To get to the top of the mountain and onto the plateau takes much endeavor. What is required is full surrender of mind, body, and words 24 hours a day, forever, and nothing less. It definitely is possible, for that is promise of Guru and Krishna. But we have to become qualified to receive their mercy. Lord Krishna instructed Uddhava, Srimad Bhagavatam 11.20, 11.20.27 to 29, that a devotee should continue in devotional service without becoming depressed by his inability to immediately overcome sense desire. These texts and purpose are so relevant in this regard that they have been reproduced here in full translation. Having awakened faith in the narrations of my glories, being disgusted with all material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, but still being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment, my devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction. Even though he is sometimes engaged in sense enjoyment, my devotee knows that all sense gratification leads to miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities. Purport. The beginning stage of pure devotional service is described here by the Lord. A sincere devotee has practically seen that all material activities lead only to sense gratification, and all sense gratification leads only to misery. Thus, a devotee's sincere desire is to engage 24 hours a day in the loving service of Lord Krishna without any personal motivation. The devotee sincerely desires to be established in his constitutional position as the Lord's eternal servitor, and he prays to the Lord to elevate him to this exalted position. The word Anishvara indicates that because of one's past sinful activities and bad habits, one may not immediately be able to completely extinguish the enjoying spirit. The Lord here encourages such a devotee not to be overly depressed or morose, but to remain enthusiastic and to go on with his loving service. The word nirvana indicates that a sincere devotee, although somewhat entangled in the remnants of sense gratification, is completely disgusted with material life and under no circumstances willingly commits sinful activities. In fact, he avoids every kind of the materialistic activity. The word kaman basically refers to sex attraction and its byproducts in the form of children, home, and so forth. Within the material world, the sex impulse is so strong that even a sincere candidate in the loving service of Lord may sometimes be disturbed by sex attraction or by lingering sentiments for wife and children. A pure devotee certainly feels spiritual affection for all living entities, including the so-called wife and children. But he knows that material bodily attraction leads to no good, for it simply entangles one and one's so-called relatives in a miserable chain reaction of fruitive activities. The word dhrida nishchaya, steadfast conviction, indicates that in any circumstance a devotee is completely determined to go on with his prescribed duties for Krishna. Thus he thinks, by my previous shameful life, my heart is polluted with many illusory attachments. Personally, I have no power to stop them. Only Lord Krishna within my heart can remove such inauspicious contamination. But whether the Lord removes such attachments immediately or lets me go on being afflicted by them, I will never give up my devotional service to Him. Even if the Lord places millions of obstacles in my path, and even if because of my offenses I go to hell, I will never for a moment stop serving Lord Krishna. I am not interested in mental speculation and fruitive activities. Even if Lord Brahma personally comes before me offering such engagements, I will not be even slightly interested. Although I am attached to material things, I can see very clearly that they lead to no good because they simply give me trouble and disturb my devotional service to the Lord. Therefore, I sincerely repent my foolish attachments to so many material things and I am patiently awaiting Lord Krishna's mercy. The word Prita indicates that a devotee feels exactly like the son or subject of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is very attached to his relationship with the Lord. Therefore, although sincerely lamenting occasional lapses into sense enjoyment, he never gives up his enthusiasm to serve Lord Krishna. If a devotee becomes too morose or discouraged in devotional service, he may drift into impersonal consciousness or give up his devotional service to the Lord. Therefore, the Lord here advises that although one should sincerely repent, he should not become chronically depressed. One should understand that because of his past sins, he must occasionally suffer disturbances from the material mind and senses. But one should not therefore become a devotee of detachment. So do the so do the speculative philosophers. Although one may desire detachment to purify one's devotional service to the Lord, if one becomes more concerned with renunciation than with acting for the pleasure of Lord Krishna, he is misunderstanding the position of loving devotional service. Faith in Lord Krishna is so powerful that in due course of time it will automatically award detachment and perfect knowledge. If one gives up Lord Krishna as the central object of one's worship and concentrates more on knowledge and detachment, one will become deviated from one's progress in going back home, back to Godhead. A sincere devotee of Lord must be sincerely convinced that simply by the strength of devotional service and the mercy of Lord Krishna, he will achieve everything auspicious in life. One must believe that Lord Krishna is all merciful and that he is the only real goal of one's life. Such determined faith, combined with a sincere desire to give up sense enjoyment, will carry one past the obstacles of this world. The words Jata Shraddha Mat Kathasu are most significant here. By faithful hearing of the mercy and glories of the Lord, one will gradually be freed from all material desire and clearly see at every moment the utter frustration of sense gratification. Chanting the glories of the Lord with firm faith and conviction is tremendously powerful spiritual process that enables one to give up all material association. There is actually nothing inauspicious in the devotional service of the Lord. Occasional difficulties experienced by a devotee are due to his previous material activities. On the other hand, the endeavor for sense gratification is completely inauspicious. Thus, sense gratification and devotional service are directly opposite to each other. In all circumstances, one should therefore remain the Lord's sincere servant, always believing in his mercy. Then one will certainly go back home, back to Godhead.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. To read. Okay. Uh, okay. Shivakumarji, I have given you the access to read.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, continue.
Translation. When an intelligent person engages constantly in worshipping me through loving devotional service as described by me, his heart becomes firmly situated in me. Thus, all material desires within the heart are destroyed. Purport. The material senses are engaged in gratifying the concoctions of the mind, causing many types of material desires to become prominent one after another. One who constantly engages in the devotional service of the Lord by hearing and chanting the Lord's transcendental glories with firm faith gets relief from the harassment of material desires. By serving the Lord, one becomes strengthened in the conviction that Sri Krishna is the only actual enjoyer and all others are meant to share the Lord's pleasure through devotional service. A devotee of the Lord situates Sri Krishna on a beautiful throne within his heart and there offers the Lord constant service. Just as the rising sun gradually eliminates all traces of darkness, the Lord's presence within the heart causes all material desires there to weaken and eventually disappear. The words Mayi Hriddhi Sthithe, when the heart is situated in me, indicate that an advanced devotee sees Lord Krishna not only within his own heart but within the hearts of all living creatures. Thus, a sincere devotee who chants and hears the glories of Sri Krishna should not be discouraged by the remnants of material desires within the heart. He should faithfully wait for the devotional process to naturally purify the heart of all contamination. The above texts refer to devotees who are fixed in their devotional determination yet still subject to disturbance. Those who are more neophyte and agitated may try to forcibly suppress their desires. However, such a process cannot ultimately be successful, for desires cannot be overcome unless they are purified. Like pressing on a bump in a carpet, a suppressed desire simply comes up elsewhere. A brahmachari struggling with sex desire may not like to admit his predicament even to himself. But if he clearly has problems with gluttony, anger, or other contaminations, he should know it to be the same enemy, sex desire, manifesting in a different way. It is best for such a brahmachari to admit his difficulty and face up to it with intelligence. Biting the teeth and straining to hold on eventually leads to collapse. Devotees who feel excessively agitated, whose minds are always disturbed by lusty desires, had better consult a senior devotee for help. Srila Rupa Goswami recommends in his Upadeshamrita that devotees reveal their minds in confidence to others. Discussing spiritual difficulties with advanced devotees helps in overcoming them. We should know that there is no easy way out. You can't just take a pill to stop sex desire. There is no instant mantra, tantra, yantra, kavacha, or astrological stone that makes material desires vanish. And although mechanical means such as restricting association with women and dietary control will help, the real magic formula is Krishna consciousness, pure devotional service. केचित् केवलया भक्त्या वासुदेवपरायणाः अघं दुन्वन्ति कात्स्नेन नीहारम् इव भास्करः. Only a rare person who has adopted complete unalloyed devotional service to Krishna can uproot the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they will revive. He can do this by discharging devotional service, just as the sun can immediately dissipate fog by its rays. Srila Prabhupada, why are you induced by sex life? Stop it by Krishna consciousness. If you devote your whole life in Krishna consciousness, you will not be agitated by any sex life. If one is actually advanced in Krishna consciousness, he will deride, "Oh, nonsense, what is this?" That is Krishna conscious advancement. The only remedy is Krishna consciousness. There is no other solution. We have to apply ourselves to Krishna consciousness very seriously, and when Krishna sees our sincerity, he will bless us, and gradually all these dirty things will go away. As Srila Prabhupada replied when asked what to do about lust, you have to become Krishna conscious, otherwise, there is no solution to this problem. It is only by the grace of the Supreme Lord that one can be protected from the allurement of lusty material desires. The Lord gives protection to devotees who are always engaged in His transcendental loving service. As stated by Srila Narottama Dasa Thakura, Kama Krishna Kamarpane.
कर्मार्पणे कर्मार्पणे
Kama Krishna Karmarpane. Lusty desires should be redirected toward the service of Krishna. This is practical. A devotee who develops the desire to please
ఇక్కడ మాతాజీ
Krishna and is constantly absorbed in his service automatically overcomes material lust. To maintain a constant service mood requires the steadiness of the mode of goodness. Steady Brahmacharya is also possible only for those on the platform of goodness. Ati Brahmacharya, extreme Brahmacharya, may be manifested as artificial austerities or misogyny, but these are symptoms of the mode of passion. It is a common misconception that lust can be conquered by being nasty to women, but traditional brahmachari training is to learn to respect women. For a person brought up in lust, ugly passions will arise whenever he sees a beautiful young woman. But the sight of the same woman will arouse a respectful feeling for a mother in the heart of a person who has been trained properly. One who feels reverence for women, considering them as mothers, cannot lust after them or want to exploit them. The tendency for the mind to sink to the lowest depths can be overcome by bringing it to the highest level. Instead of thinking of exploiting the bodies of others by sex life, a brahmachari should meditate on how to bestow the topmost benefit upon all by preaching Krishna consciousness. A brahmachari sees the body of a woman as an allurement of Maya, but also sees a soul within crying out for Krishna. Narottama Dasa Thakura states that material desires become insignificant if one gets the mercy of Lord Nityananda. Lord Nityananda was ordered by Lord Chaitanya to preach Krishna consciousness to all classes of men, even to the most fallen, which he did under the most difficult circumstances by exhibiting the greatest humility. So, if we take on difficulties in preaching service, praying for Lord Nityananda's mercy, surely he will help us. Some new devotees experience that they feel more sexual agitation after coming to Krishna consciousness than they did before. Philosophically, we can understand that it was not that the devotee was more pure before coming to Krishna, but that the stockpile of dormant material desires within the heart has become manifested. When a room is cleaned after a long time, all the dust and dirt which was hidden in dark corners comes out. On initial cleaning, the room actually seems to become more dirty. The fact is that the room was full of dirt before, but because there was no proper attempt to clean it, the dirt remained unnoticed. But the end result is that the room becomes clean in a way that it never was before, not superficially but completely. Similarly, chanting Hare Krishna cleans the mirror of the heart. When material desires come out, go on chanting. If the heart is very dirty, the cleansing process may be long and difficult, but the end result, may be after much endeavor, will be that the heart will be spotlessly clean. Fall down. It is
one
very
second,
disappointing.
uh,
Hare
one
Krishna.
second, just 1 second, Prabhu. I want to just see. Okay. You can read this fall down fully.
Okay, Prabhu. Fall down. It is very disappointing that devotees, despite professing high ideals, sometimes deviate from the regulative principles, especially by falling into illicit sex. When devotees fall down, especially senior devotees, it causes great disturbance. Of course, that tendency is there in the conditioned souls. Before engagement in sense gratification comes contemplation of the act which is developed from the seed of sinful desire in the mind. These unwanted desires arise out of the subconsciousness like bubbles surfacing from the bottom of a pond. The expert transcendentalist is adept at ignoring these grotesque thoughts and letting them die. If they are fed, they will grow bigger and bigger and eventually devour the aspiring yogi. Externally, a devotee may act as if strong, but if internally he harbors desires, then when an opportunity arises to fulfill those desires, the internal is likely to become external. Even for a devotee seriously trying to lead a pure life, it is not surprising if he is attacked by gross desires because it is the business of Maya to disturb him. The modern age is especially difficult for brahmacharis because even while walking on the street, they'll see so many dressed up women, cinema advertisements, and billboards, all specifically designed to invoke lusty desires. Modern cities throng with thousands of women trying to outdo each other in being provocative. Traditionally, brahmacharis would keep their eyes downcast while walking on a public path so as to avoid seeing the distractions of Maya. This may not be practical in today's cities, but still, brahmacharis have to be very careful to control their eyes while moving in Maya's kingdom. It is not surprising if the mind becomes agitated, but if a brahmachari persistently cannot control his mind, he had better get married before he falls down into illicit sex. A gross fall down may also happen accidentally, that is, without previous contemplation. Unexpectedly, a devotee may find himself in a situation where Maya is presenting herself to him, and due to insufficient spiritual strength, he succumbs. Therefore, a brahmachari is cautious at every step of his life so as to avoid danger. Krishnadasa Kaviraja Goswami has cautioned devotees not to fall into the whirlpools of unfortunate situations. If one falls into such positions, he is finished. However, we also have to preach in this most contaminated world. Therefore, we should always stay tight in the association of devotees and keep strong by hearing and chanting with full attention. Srila Prabhupada, if you chant always Hare Krishna, read my books, and preach this philosophy sincerely, then Krishna will provide you with all facility and you will not fall down into material entanglement. For preaching, we must take risks, but not to the extent that our minds become greatly agitated. We must know the limits of our strength in Krishna consciousness and work within those limits. Srila Prabhupada, that is our real mission to deliver the world by preaching Krishna's message to others. But even higher realization, the highest realization, is to save oneself. However, an inadvertent temporary fall down is not a disqualification for devotional service. Krishna forgives. The devotee must pick himself up quickly and carry on. But we must know that fall downs, even mental, are damaging to our devotional service. If there is no attempt for rectification, we can expect Krishna to reciprocate such insincerity by withdrawing his mercy. Thus, the privilege of devotional service is lost.
Okay, Prabhu, please. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Okay, Shubhankarji, you can read it. Continue to read.
Hare Krishna. Masturbation. In our endeavor to become Krishna conscious, Maya is always trying to knock us back. Even for a sincere devotee who has made considerable progress, Maya doesn't hesitate to use her lowest and grossest weapon, sex. Sometimes devotees, even responsible devotees who have no intentions of physically engaging in illicit sex, become weak. On lying down, they submit to the mad mind and even, against their own will, indulge in mental fantasies and masturbation. This is a difficult problem, especially if it becomes a habit. If this contemplation is not stopped at an early stage, then it will likely go from thinking to feeling and to willingly engaging in sex. Such a person usually ends up getting married or worse, falls into illicit sex and becomes a debaucher. A devotee with this habit will always feel guilty and may literally go crazy. Guilty feelings sometimes impel a devotee to hide his problem from those who care about his devotional advancement. However, to rectify this faulty mentality requires confidential counseling from one's guru, local authority, or any other trusted devotee. Admitting to this takes courage and can understandably be embarrassing. But if a devotee suffering from this malady is at all to overcome it, he must seek advice from a senior devotee who he can completely trust. Particularly, the spiritual master is the topmost well wisher of the disciple, so no anartha should be kept secret from him if the disciple really wants to weed them out for good. However, even with the best of help, it may not be easy to overcome this painful predicament. The only real solution is to surrender to Krishna. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but one who has surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. We have to take shelter of Madana Mohana. See lengthy quote from Srila Prabhupada's lecture in Overcoming Sex Desire. Take heart though, for impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. With sincere endeavor and the help of others, this degrading habit can be broken. A practical tip to Krishnaize the mind at night is to read the Krishna book with devotees before retiring, and thus go to sleep thinking of Krishna's pastimes. Some devotees go to sleep listening to a cassette of Srila Prabhupada's transcendental voice purifying their mind. In the following letter, Srila Prabhupada seems to addressing this problem. You are finding some difficulty with sex desire and have asked guidance from me to instruct you how to handle this problem of the material body. First of all, I think you should know that such problems are not very unnatural because the conditioned soul is very prone to failure. But also, we must remember that such failure will not discourage us from executing the most important mission of our life to become fully Krishna conscious. So, whatever fall down has been, you should be regretful about it, but it is not so serious, nor is it a permanent disqualification. But you must try to check yourself from such artificial things and take full shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. I think that for such checking, marriage is the only solution. It is understood that everyone has some nasty habits. But by sticking to Krishna consciousness, chanting or required rounds loudly, and tending the deities, these items will surely save you. So always be seriously engaged in serving Krishna and pray to Krishna to help you with your frailties. But I think that marriage is the solution with no other alternative. If you are married, you can continue to practice all the items of worship and with more peace of mind. So such solution, along with redoubled efforts to serve nicely and be very pleasing to Krishna, these things will help you. It is my open advice for everyone that one who is disturbed by sex must take the responsibility of married life. Homosexuality. Neither heterosexuality nor homosexuality are natural. Heterosexual desire is a perverted reflection of our original love for Krishna, and homosexuality is another twist. Srila Prabhupada. The homosexual appetite of a man for another man is demoniac and is not for any sane man in the ordinary course of life. Due to the influence of Kali Yuga, homosexuality is now a common problem. As Kali Yuga advances, we will have to accommodate more and more people with past perverse lives and give them the opportunity for purification. If homosexuals sincerely come to Krishna consciousness, what advice should we give them? In the Vedic culture, heterosexual desires can be accommodated within the Grihastha ashrama, but there is no scope for accommodating homosexual desires. Srila Prabhupada recommended the marriage to a woman for a disciple with homosexual desires. This advice may not seem very practical, for the homosexual's attraction is to men rather than women. But homosexual or heterosexual, the disease is lust. Homosexuality means that the lust has increased to an abnormally high degree. Marriage means to channel that lust in a manner acceptable within the Vedic culture. Anyway, Homosexuals coming to Krishna consciousness will need special guidance from senior devotees. The homosexual must be understood as an individual person and be given proper facility after frank discussion. He should understand his condition to be especially fallen, but should be confident that by Krishna consciousness all difficulties can be overcome. Another devotee should be sympathetic and understanding with such sincere souls. As with any conditioned soul accepted for devotional service, sheltering homosexuals in the ashrama is a risk. As with a heterosexual, we shall first have to see if a homosexual is sufficiently self controlled before, before he may be allowed to stay in the ashrama. Remembering that, whereas, whereas heterosexual brahmacharis are sheltered from the objects of their attraction in the brahmacari-ashrama, the homosexual is surrounded by them. We must be compassionate, but we cannot sacrifice our standards of purity.
Yes, Prabhu, you can read this topic.
Preaching about celibacy. Preaching to non devotees should generally not be about celibacy, but about the need to become Krishna conscious. If they take up Krishna consciousness, then everything else will follow. Newcomers to Krishna consciousness are sometimes discouraged by so many restrictions, especially those on sex. They should be encouraged to chant, take prasada, and associate with devotees, if they want sex that is not forbidden in the Grihastha ashrama. On the other hand, if a young man is ready to be a brahmachari, by all means encourage him. At least among committed devotees, preaching about celibacy must go on. Srila Prabhupada, the whole world is engaged in this vagina problem. These things should be regularly discussed. This is Kirtana. If these things are not discussed in our movement, then everything will grow weak. There should be one class after another. Everything is in the books. It is undoubtedly difficult to promote celibacy in a world atmosphere where everything is related to sex and women. The whole world today is absorbed in gross sense gratification, of which the ultimate expression is sex. Moreover, so-called scientists and doctors openly state that losing semen is not harmful to health. If people ask why we are celibate, we can explain to them that it is a prerequisite for self-realization. The mind must be controlled, but it never can be if it is agitated by sex indulgence. One cannot be a transcendentalist, whether a yogi, jnani, or devotee, without being celibate. Celibacy has been accepted by priests and monks in leading Hindu, Buddhist, and Christian traditions since time immemorial. Jesus, Buddha, Shankaracharya, and countless others accepted the vow of celibacy. Celibacy is not an old-fashioned, cranky idea, but a dynamic, vital principle for achieving a success so sublime that ordinary people cannot conceive of it at all. Furthermore, the practice of celibacy has not been limited to the sphere of religion. As Dr. R. W. Bernard notes in his book, Science discovers the physiological value of continence. The greatest intellectual geniuses in both ancient and modern times led continent lives, and there is yet to be recorded one individual who freely expended seminal fluid who ever amounted to anything. In most cases, individuals who have achieved have been forced by necessity to abstain from sexual indulgence, as, as Cervantes, who wrote Don Quixote while in prison, or Dante, who wrote his Divine Comedy while in exile. Milton wrote Paradise Lost when blind and when he did not indulge in sex. Sir Isaac Newton, active in intellect until the age of 80, led a continent life from birth, and so did Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, and Michelangelo, both of whom retained their creative genius until an advanced age. Other famous celibates include Pythagoras, Plato, Aristotle, Spinoza, Kant, Beethoven, and Herbert Spencer. Many other philosophers, artists, and scientists have preferred to sublimate the sex drive so as to increase their creativity and concentrate their energy on intellectual pursuits. This stands as evidence against the standard Freudian objection that celibates become frustrated and should therefore be allowed to indulge. It is true that restricting the body without being able to control the mind could lead to psychosis. Without developing a higher consciousness, celibacy will be a torture. But many non-celibates also suffer frustration, anxiety, or physical disease caused directly or indirectly by sex. Celibate or non-celibate, the real problem is sex. Furthermore, those with knowledge of the laws of karma understand that indulgence in sex entangles the conditioned souls even more deeply in material bondage. The ultimate solution, then, is neither to accept nor reject sex, but to rise above it altogether to come to the spiritual platform. A fully Krishna conscious person can be fully celibate or can have a dozen children, but either way, his consciousness is never contaminated. But for the neophyte transcendentalist, sexual agitation is a major disturbance in his meditation on the Absolute Truth. Therefore, aspiring devotees who are capable of doing so are advised to remain completely celibate if they can control their minds. Otherwise, devotees may get married and engage in restricted sex during part of their lives. Nevertheless, sex is risky. Even within marriage, if sex is engaged in at the wrong time, in the wrong place, in the wrong circumstances, or without having undergone the required purificatory rituals, both man and woman become punishable by the laws of nature. Yet, the pushing of sex desires is so strong that, even knowing all this, we become impelled to commit sinful acts. Kama esha krodha esha. Therefore, it is best to remain brahmacharis, strictly avoiding contact with women so as not to be victimized. Devotees must be convinced of the necessity of sense control. We must know that sense control is in our real self interest. Without becoming free from sense gratification, especially sex, no one can achieve perfection in Krishna consciousness. Brahmacharya is the essential training and practice in sense control and detachment through which perfection is finally attained. We must be determined to follow the principles of Brahmacharya, otherwise, we cannot make any progress. In preaching, another approach is to explain the deleterious effects of sex, animal slaughter, gambling, and intoxication on society. Crime, war, floods, droughts, famine, cancer, AIDS, and multifarious other problems are scourging the world. Learned professors write big scholarly treatises suggesting how to overcome the problems, but the problems remain. People do not know that they are reaping the poisonous harvest of sinful activities, especially of cow killing and illicit sex. However, even 100 years ago, sense control was considered a virtue, and excessive sense indulgence a vice. It was only after man from monkeys Darwin and let loose Freud that the old barriers collapsed. Free sex flourished, gradually divorce, living together, unmarried mothers, birth control, abortion, and homosexuality, all formerly banned and considerable despicable, became socially acceptable. Nowadays, austerity for spiritual advancement is considered despicable. The resultant society is a disaster and getting worse. Now even child abuse and incest have become everyday affairs. The materialists express their horror, but probably after some time they will legalize and encourage these types of sinful activities as well. It is quite possible because the whole society is made up of Varna Sankara, children begotten in lust. John Lennon observed that most children are born over a bottle of whiskey on Saturday night. The degraded consciousness of the degraded consciousness of such unwanted byproducts is unimaginable. Born in the mode of ignorance, they are totally blind to the necessity of sense control. They are constantly involved in all kinds of abominable activities, considering them quite normal, and never for a moment imagine that their reactions to sinful activity are the cause of all chaos in human society.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, we will stop here. The time is up, and we will meet tomorrow unless somebody has any question to ask. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So we will read from page number 111, Staying Brahmachari. Until then, thank you very much. Good night. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सन्देभ्यः पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। दन्ते निधाय तृणकम्पदयो निपत्य कृत्वा च काकुशलम् एतदहं ब्रह्मी हे साधवः सकलं विहाय दुरां चरणे कृतानुभावः। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यः पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो